So let's talk about all the people in the United States who have told us for years, China is our friend. Oh, trust China. The Chinese are good. You've encountered this. You've encountered it in Congress.
Yeah. Well, the billionaire class has been following market influence and market forces and using the swamp to leverage these people's power to move, our supply chains into China, our manufacturing jobs into China. Now it's been well reported 85% of our, manufactured pharmaceuticals, et cetera, in China. The protective equipment, China, I'm sure we'll get into the timeline, but this was mid-January. They went on a global shopping spree and bought out Australia, Brazil, European PPE, all masks and gowns, knowing full well that the world would need those, knowing full well there was a pandemic already in place. And so you've documented, and Bill Gertz has been on your show in his book, Deceiving the Sky, 200 pages of evidence of the coming cyber war, economic war. But now we see the true intent even beyond that, right? With this, it's premeditated calculations of shutting down their own travel in Wuhan, and especially travel to Beijing, but opening up travel to the United States, 400,000 Chinese coming to the States while they knew a pandemic was there. They were in the White House concluding the trade agreement. Right. They made the announcement after the trade agreement. They're in the White House shaking hands with our entire administration. This is all premeditated actions that they knew in the midst of a pandemic. And Xi Jinping, in Bill Gertz's book, pretty fascinating. His favorite three personalities, Mao, Stalin, and Hitler. That's scary. And he had some Hitler garb in his own house. And so, if that doesn't just wake you up, but the New York Times and the Washington Post, who are funded by the establishment creatures that you mentioned, you're not getting the truth and the reporting on the new evil empire and its evil. And I pray that the American people are still equipped psychologically and theologically and philosophically to deal with these concepts of good and evil and our moral responsibility with how we should deal with them as God deals with good and evil.
Yeah, there's no question. And Wall Street has sold us out. Wall Street did the largest IPO in history to date, was Alibaba. We gave them $25 billion. They turned around and invested. Business leaders, politicians, think tanks, Hollywood, universities, not Liberty, but a lot of universities bought and paid for by the Chinese with Confucius Institute. And this has been going on a long time. It dates back to Henry Kissinger when Nixon went to China, and he used it as a lever against the Soviet Union, and that's good, but they've been stealing our industry, stealing our intellectual property, and infiltrating just about everything that we've got, literally stealing the economic might of America. And now they did this trade deal with us and specifically exempted oil if a pandemic happens. When they signed the papers, they knew there was a pandemic, and they let it out of their country. It's frightening.
Right. Right. And the implications aren't just to the U.S. The entire Belt and Road Initiative, where they go around try to buy United Nations votes. People are starting to figure out that the United States is still indispensable when it comes to freedom and liberty and purpose and meaning. And I think we're on our way back. The rest of the world is seeing very clearly. You have the French Prime Minister, the Canadians, the U.K. now is going to do a retake on Huawei. And the world is flipping back to its senses in a way. We'll see if we can retain that. But I think we're going to get the supply chains lined up properly, and U.S. leadership will be the key. And just a huge point to make here. President Trump is the only president in 30 or 40 years that ahead of time paid attention to globalization and to China.
Only one in my lifetime.